Happy Friday, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Property Source and Success Show. If you're new here, my name's Danielle and I'm the founder of the Six Figure Sourcing Blueprint. And in today's episode, I want to do something slightly different. What I want to do today, I think this would be exceptionally useful for a lot of you, is I want to walk you through exactly how I would work up to replacing my corporate salary in a 90-day time frame using property sourcing from scratch, zero experience, zero portfolio, zero clue about property, because if I need to remind you, that's exactly the position I started from when I delved into the world of property sourcing 9 years ago on maternity leave from a corporate job. And before you start rolling your eyes and think, yeah, all right, Danielle, I want you to stick with me on this episode today. If you've been following my content for a while, whether it's my daily email blogs or whether it's the podcast every week, you will know that you're certainly not going to be getting any fluffy motivational nonsense from me. This is an actual roadmap. This is step by step. This is what I do, when I would do it, and why I would do it. So if you're sitting on the train right now, if you're staring at a laptop, pretending to be in a meeting, but you're actually Googling how to make money in property, which, side note, genuinely, actually was the Google search I put into Google on maternity leave, how to make money in property. So this episode is for you today and we can dive right into it. Before I give you the plan, I need to call out something that, well, frankly, I believe is absolutely rife in the property sourcing space. And it's responsible for more people failing in this particular strategy or niche than just about anything else. And you've probably heard it. It is find the deals and then the money will follow. Holy moly, really. That is what people are being told. That is what people are being taught. That is what has people running out and throwing offers in on properties that they have absolutely no capability and no capacity to take on because they don't have investors lined up to buy them. It sounds logical. Find the deal and the investors will appear. Build it and they will come. Wrong. Completely wrong. And I'm going to tell you why. I have genuinely seen smart, hard-working people spend weeks, sometimes months, finding a genuinely brilliant deal. Honestly, a very good deal, packaging it up well, and then they're hit with crickets because they have no investors, they have no relationships, they do not have a list, they have nobody to sell to. So what happens here is the deal goes stale, the seller loses patience, or 9 times out of 10, as was the mistake that I made, the estate agent loses all respect for you, they lose all confidence in you, and you are blacklisted before you've even got off the starting blocks. So the myth of find the deals and the money will follow sets you up to be a deal finder with no business. And frankly, that's just an unpaid hobby, which is, the way I teach it and the way that actually works is that you build your investor database and your deal pipeline simultaneously at the same time from day one. It's like parallel tracks, not sequential steps. By the time you have a deal ready to go, you already then will have people waiting for it. That is the difference between someone who does one deal and then crashes and burns, or somebody who builds a real sustainable 6-figure plus sourcing business. So now that we know that and we've got that myth out of the way, then you can look at the next 90 days and build them out properly. And before I give you the plan again, I also need to say something else that nobody in this space will say. 90 days is fast. It's doable. I've seen people do it, but it requires you to actually do the work, not think about doing the work, not vision board about doing the work. You actually have to do it. Most people will listen to this episode. They'll get fired up. They'll get excited. They'll get motivated. They'll get inspired. They'll tell their partner, I've listened to the podcast episode. I know exactly what it is that we need to do. But then they'll go and do absolutely nothing because I understand life gets in the way. The kids need something. And, in my house, it's constantly running between football matches and Gaelic matches and the track and the swimming pool and taekwondo. Or maybe work gets mental and then suddenly, it's 6 months down the line and you're still in the same job. You're still doing the same commute every day. You still get the same Sunday fear. So the first thing I do before anything else is make a decision. A real one, not a I'll give it a go decision. Am I doing this decision? This is essentially this is the shift that your head changes, and everything after that is about how you show up. So I want you to make a decision, and let's get right into this. So what is property sourcing? Well, this is a pretty short podcast and I want to make this the quick version, but for any of you who are new and tuning into the podcast, property sourcing is essentially where you find investment properties from a variety of strategies, high yield properties, sometimes discounted properties, and you package them up for investors who are almost certainly cash rich but time poor. So you don't need to own the property, you don't need to have a mortgage, you don't need to have the savings. You simply need the knowledge, you need the hustle, and you need the ability to find the deals that other people can't. And then you get paid a sourcing fee. Typically, the ranges are anything between lower end £3,000 maybe for your standard buy-to-let property deals, all the way up to £10,000 per deal if you're looking at maybe HMO conversions, sometimes more. So if you're thinking of replacing, I don't know, let's say a £50,000 salary, that's roughly 5 to 10 deals a year, which sounds like a lot until you realise that you can do one deal a month once you know what you're doing. Some of my students inside the six-figure sourcing blueprint have done their first deal within 30 days. So let's look at a 90-day plan here. Days 1 to 30. This is your foundation stage, and your investor pipeline starts now. So I'm going to call this first month the stop being a about property phase. I want you to be honest. Most corporate professionals think they know about property because they own a house. Well, they do not. Owning a house and understanding investment property are two completely different things. One is emotional and one is a business. So the first 30 days, this is what I would be doing. Look, you can grab a pen, you can write this down, you can pause this podcast as we go, you can come back to it. But the first thing is, you're going to get educated. And I don't mean spending 3 years doing a course. I mean getting the fundamentals fixed and down fast. Understand what makes a deal. Learn the numbers. Understand what yield is. Understand what return in investment is. Understand that if you're looking at discounted properties, what a genuinely discounted property is. And in many cases in this industry, you'll hear it referred to as below market value. I have my own opinions on below market value, but I'll save that for another podcast episode on another day. You need to understand the difference between buy-to-let, HMO, serviced accommodation. Give yourself 2 weeks of focused learning, not 6 months, 2 weeks. 2 weeks of focused learning. The second thing I would do is then pick your strategy and your area. Now, this is where most people get stuck because they try to do everything everywhere. Please don't do that. Pick one property strategy and one area to focus on. Ideally, somewhere or somewhere with a strong rental demand. When you try to be everywhere, you become an expert in nothing and in everything. The third thing that I want you to do, and this is critical, is start building your investor list from day one. Not when you found a deal, not when you have an opportunity. Build your investor list now. Go to local property networking events. Get into Facebook groups. Join LinkedIn communities. Start having conversations with people who have money to invest but maybe no time to find the deals. You're not selling anything yet. You're simply building relationships. And I want to be really clear here. This is not optional. This is not optional. This is not like the pick-a-mix counter where you could have a little dibble and a little dabble here and there. Will I take it? Will I not? No, this is non-negotiable. It's not something you do after you have a deal. Trust me, I have been there. I have done it that way. We call it arse about face here in Ireland. I did it arse about face and it backfired on me. So you need to start building the investor list from day one. This runs alongside everything else from week one. And then when you have a deal, and you want a warm list of investor contacts who already know you, who already trust you, and who are potentially already to move. You do not need a blank page and a prayer. Number 4, register your business. Seriously, do it. It takes 15-20 minutes on Company's House. Stop treating this like a hobby before it's started, okay? Get yourself in the mind frame, get yourself in the mindset that I am going to make a proper go of this. Days 31 to 60. This is where we start finding deals and building your investor base in unison, in parallel. So month 2 is really, I guess, where it steps up a notch or two. This is where both tracks, deals and investors, accelerate at the same time. And I want to be very honest with you and full transparency. This is also where most people quit. Why, Danielle? Why do most people quit in the second month? Well, frankly, because they have to do a bit of work, right? You have to be consistent. It's very unglamorous. If you ever bought into property and the world of property and owning a property business for the glitz and the glam, I gotta tell you now, sunshine, hang up your boots now. It is not glitzy, it is not glamorous. And the pictures of the Rolls Royces, or sorry, not Rolls Royces, that's a bit extravagant, but the Range Rovers and the Rolexes, it's all a facade, because that's not what running a business day to day, and that's not what the grind is. It's consistent. It is very unglamorous. It's repetitive work on two fronts simultaneously. But this is exactly what separates the people who make money from property sourcing from the people who just talk about making money from property sourcing. And there are a lot of those people running their mouths every day. Now, on the deal side, you want to build your deal finding system. You're going to be using Rightmove. If you're in Northern Ireland, you're going to be using Property Pal. You maybe want to get up Zoopla alerts. Start driving your target area, maybe looking for unmaintained properties, long vacant houses, tired landlord signs. My particular favourite, and the one that has served me the most and made me the most money in property sourcing, and I do mean a lot of money, is making friends with local letting agents. Also, estate agents, phenomenal source of stock. But letting agents and a handful of estate agents made me a load of money, especially when I was getting my business off the ground. You're going to be putting out offers. Most of them will be rejected. That is totally normal. It is totally fine. You keep going, because what you have to understand, this is a numbers game. It is a volume-based game. And if you get upset and easily offended because you got offers rejected and you were told no more than twice, then this is not a game for you. When you find something that is worth packaging, then you verify it properly. You're going to look at your comparable sales, your rental evidence, photos, what the projected returns are. Make it look professional, because you are a professional. Then on the investor side of things, you really want to take it up a notch and start deepening the relationships. If you've been showing up in groups and you have been at events for a month or more now, people are starting to recognize your name. Now you start having more direct conversations. What are investors looking for? What returns matter to them? What areas are they interested in? What is their buying criteria? All this is gold, because now when you are looking for deals, you're not just looking for generic good deals. Because what I'll also tell you is, what looks like a good deal to one investor is not a good deal to somebody else. What looks like a great return on paper is not a great return for the next investor. So there's no such thing as a good deal and having a pro forma for it. It differs. But when you start deepening your relationships and having better conversations with potential investor clients, you're no longer throwing mud at the wall when you're viewing properties. You're looking for deals that match the specific criteria that the investors have already told you they are looking for. That is an entirely different and a far more powerful way to work, because you are essentially pre-selling before you have anything to sell. And that's how the real business works. Then let's look at month 3. This is essentially where you match your deal to your investor and you get paid. Month 3 is what I like to refer as the money phase. This is actually working phase. And, I'll never forget receiving my first sourcing fee into my bank account. Like, it was a small fee. It should have been a £3,000 fee. I discounted the fee. I never should have discounted the fee, but I was working with an investor who I certainly wouldn't work with in today's current market. But it was my first investor. I discounted the property deal to like $2,000, and I'll never forget that money landed into my bank account. It was unbelievable, and it was kind of like a can of Pringles. Like, once you pop, you can't stop. Once you know, holy this is a thing. This is a thing. Then you have no limit. You have no ceiling. The world is your oyster. So month 3 is the money phase. And by now, let's say you have a deal. You have been working your letting agents. You've been working your estate agents. You've been doing various other bits and pieces to get in front of property opportunities. You found one. But more crucially, at this stage in month 3, you also have a warm investor list of people who already know you and who have told you what they're looking for. And then this is essentially the moment where the myth falls apart in the best possible way, because you're no longer cold calling strangers and hoping somebody bites. You're not posting deals into WhatsApp groups and hoping somebody, gives you a nod. You're going back to people to say, look, we've been building this relationship with you now for the last 2 months. I remember you told me what it is that you've been looking for. Well, look, I have found it. I have found the very thing that you told me you were looking for. That conversation is completely different. The trust is already there. The credibility is already there. All you are doing now is connecting a deal to a person who has been waiting for it. Crucially, though, there are a few things that you want to nail down in this phase. Be prepared for questions that you do not know the answer to. And that is okay. That is okay. And my default response when an investor would ask me a question in the early days that I didn't know the answer to, I would say, that's a really great question. I don't have the answer for you right now, but I will tap into my network base and I'll have an answer for you within 24 hours. Now, that is a perfectly acceptable answer. What is not acceptable is the answer. Do not do that. It will end your reputation very fast. But additionally to that, if you've said, I'll have the answer for you within 24 hours, you better make sure that you get the answer in 24 hours. Why? Well, for one simple reason, you are showing the investor that you will follow through. You are showing them that you do what you say you will do and you follow through with it. So anytime an investor asks me a question that I didn't have the answer to, I would no shame say, look, that's a great question. It's not one I know the answer to right now. However, I will tap into my own network base because I know I have someone in there who can provide me with that answer. I'll come back to you with it in 24 hours. Then you want to get your paperwork sorted. So you'll need your sourcing agreement. You will need to be compliant. That's probably an episode for another day. But side note, compliance is not the rocket science degree that so many people would lead you to believe that it is. It's actually a very straightforward process. Anybody who tries to complicate it for you is usually trying to sell you a course. So make sure you're compliant. You're running a business. You're not doing favors for your mates. Compliance in sourcing does matter. So yeah, get that done. And then close the deal, collect your fee, cry and enjoy, call your wife, call your husband, pour yourself a large glass of wine because you've done it. You've cracked the nut. You've ripped the plaster off. You've popped your sourcing cherry. It's done. That first sourcing fee landing in your account, something will shift in you. I know because I felt it. Side note, what did I do with my first sourcing fee? I took my husband and my then 1-year-old to Euro Disney in Paris. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's no longer theory. You have just proved to yourself that you can do it and you cannot put a price on that feeling. Trust me. And I know I said at the start of the podcast episode today that I don't do fluff and I don't do motivational speaking. I really don't. But I would be doing you a massive disservice if I didn't mention something. And again, this was something I had to work on significantly when I was coming up through the ranks 9 years ago. The biggest barrier between you and your first deal, just so you know, is not knowledge. It's not your contact base. It's not who you have on your phone list. And it's not the time that you do or do not have. It is the voice in your head that says, who the am I to be doing this? Who am I to be doing this? Who am I to be involved in property? I can't do this. You've maybe, and a lot of my audience are in some form or capacity coming from a corporate background. You've maybe spent 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years building a corporate identity. You could be a finance director, a project manager, a head of HR. I work with commercial airline pilots, barristers, lawyers, commercial interior designers. We work with consultants, anaesthetists, doctors, business owners in different industries. And the title that you have gives you safety. It gives you a script to follow. And walking away from that, even just to start walking away, feels absolutely terrifying. But here's the thing. That corporate title you had, I was a financial analyst for the New York Stock Exchange, the most prestigious financial institution in the world. That title that I had was a corporate cage with a pretty nice view. That's what it was. You are smart enough to do this. You have more transferable skills than you actually realize. You can analyze the data. You can manage people. You can hit deadlines. You can communicate professionally, and you can solve problems. Those are exactly the skills that make for a brilliant property sourcer and founder of a brilliant property sourcing business. The only difference between you and somebody who is already doing it is that they started and they stayed with it. That is it. That is it. So there you have it. 90 days, 2 parallel tracks running at the same time. One is for deals, one is for investors, so that when you are ready to sell a deal, you already have somebody to buy. Stop waiting until you have a deal to think about who you're going to sell it to. That is a backwards way of doing it. Build both of these models simultaneously, and your first deal closes faster, cleaner, and with a hell of a lot less stress. A hell of a lot less stress. If you want to go any deeper on this, the exact steps to finding the deals, how to build your investor list, what to say to your investors, how to get them officially onboarded, how to get your fees taken up front, the compliance that you need, how to get the off-market stock with the letting agents specifically so that you never have to spend money on direct-to-vendor marketing. Well, that is exactly what we cover inside the 6-Figure Sourcing Blueprint. And if that is something that you're interested in and you would love to know more about what working with me and my team inside the program would look like to replace that corporate salary, drop me a message on social media. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And if this episode hit home, please share it. Send it to somebody in your life or in your contacts who's been moaning about the job for the last 2 years but hasn't done anything about it. Sometimes people just need somebody else to tell them straight that there is another way. I hope this has been useful. I'll see you in the next episode. In between now and then, do something with what you've just heard.